As the crypto market plays out differently to what 90% of experts predicted, we start to look at the 10% of people and the real experts, no quotations needed, who predicted that Bitcoin would still be under $110,000 accurately. And one of them that is absolutely crushing his predictions this cycle is Jesse Eckle. He has over 270,000 subs on YouTube. He's got 36,000 here on Twitter. He says that last cycle, he turned a little bit of money, a handful of thousands of dollars, maybe $10,000, $20,000, into a life-changing amount of money, many hundreds of thousands. But the important thing is, he says he held on to that profit. He was managed to take profit because he timed the top and then reinvested and went all in less than a week from the bottom. So he's timed the exact top and the exact bottom, and he has a prediction that the exact top is going to fall in 2026, which is different from every other cycle and different from what most people are saying. Mr. Crypto says, we are approaching the end of the Bitcoin cycle, the fourth year. This is what 90% of people are predicting, and this is why we're seeing a massive pullback. I'll get into the details in just a second, but Mr. Crypto says, and this is literally this week, don't forget to take profit. The first bull market in 2017, technically the second bull market in 2017, was 1,064 days. The bull market in 2021 was 1,064 days. The bull market, which with a lot of people saying we haven't had a bull market yet, but when you look at these graphs, like look, this is a very bullish time over the last 2 to 3 years. And you look at the total Bitcoin from the low of 16,000 when Jesse Eckle bought apparently 1 week from the bottom, it looks extremely bullish and like there was a lot of upside. And that is why people are thinking this is the end of the cycle, because now we're going to come down the other side and we're going to have to wait another 4 years to get another massive growth like we saw over the last 2 years. And this thesis comes from the Bitcoin halving. And to understand why Jesse is so convinced that we're heading into 2026 and we are still going to go parabolic from the point that we're at, I'm going to show you exactly where Jesse gets this theory from and how high they think it's going to go. Hint, hint, it's in the $400,000 per Bitcoin. You first have to understand where the 4-year cycle comes from, because people thought that the Bitcoin halving, which happens every 4 years, the rewards for mining a block of Bitcoin get halved. And you can see the very first halving here, Bitcoin was at $12. The moment it halved, it was parabolic runs all the way up to almost over $1,000 per Bitcoin, which is almost 100x return. The next halving happened at $600 Bitcoin, and you saw the parabolic run up to 15,000. Then, this is pre-2021 now, this is the last cycle, the halving happened at around 9,000, and it ran parabolic up to $60,000 top. Now, everyone was thinking that this halving here at the $64,000 mark would then be parabolic run. Now we have had it run, but you can see it looks pretty flat compared to every other time. We haven't had that banana zone and that parabolic growth that everyone has been predicting. But Jesse Eckle has been convinced for a long time now, and he says that no one is listening, that the end of October, which is where we currently are, is when things will flip bullish again. He says this is the first 5-year cycle. It's not a 4-year cycle, but a 5-year cycle, and he's betting his entire net worth on it. And he's got a decent net worth and called the exact top and the exact bottom. So it's someone that you might want to listen to, because his thesis is that the market is dumping right now. Crypto altcoins specifically are down from all-time highs a long way, just at the right time to push all the 4-year cycle maxis to the exit. Everyone who believes that the 4-year cycle is up are exiting. And Jesse's thinking that this is also a self-fulfilling prophecy, because everyone thinks the cycle is over, they're starting to exit, and therefore the cycle is dipping and everyone's getting out right before the critical moment. He says right before we transition into an easing cycle and the actual bull run kicks off in 2026. And he has strong facts backing this thesis. Imagine holding for 4 years just to sell right before everything actually takes off. He says that would be maximum pain. In fact, he says 2026 is going to run it back just like we did in 2021, where most people were predicting that this was going to be 2025 and this year that would do it. So what is Jesse's thesis? What makes him so confident about this? Well, he says, I've been trying to tell everyone this forever, but no one will listen. The 2020 policy decisions has created a new cycle pattern that has broken us out of the old 4-year cycles. ETF flows fundamentally strengthen crypto ties to macro and traditional markets. He believes it's less about the Bitcoin halving and more about the macro and traditional markets. Therefore, this will be the first 5-year crypto cycle. He goes on to say, as soon as people accept that the 4-year cycle is dead, we can then enter the next phase of the market. When the 4-year cycle is buried 6 feet deep, people will finally start to believe that anything is possible again. Again, the self-fulfilling prophecy that people are marching out the door because they think the show is over, when there is an extra scene behind the credits for this cycle, according to Jesse. The same people who swore by the 4-year cycle will be the ones calling for a never-ending institutional super cycle at the peak euphoria at the top. He says once the market faith comes back and everyone believes again, we can get the parabolic blow off top and the retail mania, the 10, 20, 30, 50, 100,000 X's that we've all been too patiently in my opinion, waiting for. Then, in the end, always, everyone agrees that we go way higher. We get the epic collapse and the bear market we deserve. This was in the video I did on Alex Becker's thesis right now. Everyone calling the top, by definition, means it's not the top. The top is always marked with euphoria, and we have zero euphoria right now. We still have a long way to go, but he believes the best crypto gains are still ahead. And Kyle Chassie actually summarized his point really well. He says the Bitcoin halving, the 4-year cycle, is not what moves markets, but money printing does, the macro economy, as Jesse put it. Rates are cutting, credit is flowing, and liquidity is rising. That's the real proof that the bull run isn't over yet. And this is backed by data. You can see the price of Bitcoin is in the orange right here. And every time it got pushed higher, which just happened to coincide in Jesse's theory with the 4-year halving cycle, the money printer was on in max capacity. That is, governments and banks literally making money up out of thin air, increasing the liquidity, increasing the amount of money that's in the economy, which will then flow into risk assets like Bitcoin and our altcoins. But you can see for 2023 to 2025, there has not been a massive money printing. We are yet to print. And it's this printing, which has historically happened every 4 years, but this year it's getting pushed out to a 5th year for a reason that Jesse's about to explain in a second, that Bitcoin still hasn't had its parabolic run to the $400,000 level. And Joe Carlaser says here, bookmark this to send to anyone claiming that the cycle is just like the others. You can see these were the other cycles that were 550 days in. You can see they had already gone parabolic, but we have not gone parabolic. At least the price of Bitcoin has not gone parabolic yet, which is excellent proof that it is not the halving that makes us go parabolic, but far more likely to be the M2 and the money supply and having a risk on economy. This here is Jesse's exact thesis. He says he's been saying since the start of 2025, this will be the first crypto 5-year cycle. The cycle will extend well into 2026. I believe I know where he got this thesis from, which I'll talk to you about in a second, who these people also believe it's going to go right to the end, probably August, October in 2026, due to things like the SLR adjustments, the credit cycle, and Besant's mandate from heaven to run the economy hot, that is the US economy. Past cycles just happened to line up perfectly with year-on-year liquidity growth and wider macro conditions that were supportive of these risk assets that we are all dabbling in, hoping retire our bloodlines. This cycle hasn't had anything even remotely similar. It's been abysmal, which is why it's felt miserable for most of the crypto space, despite the fact, and that's what this graph looked like at the start, that Bitcoin has gone up. Jesse believes that's due to the ETF and the institutional narratives. But in 2026, we'll have Powell out of office and Trump stacking the Fed in his favor while asking for 300 BPS of cuts. We have the Clarity Act, which is on its own bullish enough to kick off a bull run, altcoin ETFs coming in, and the SEC throwing the doors wide open for crypto innovation. Past cycles topped in peak euphoria with retail mania everywhere, as the liquidity shifted from maximum easing towards tightening. Those tops made perfect sense if you looked at them through a macro lens of where is the liquidity. This cycle, it makes zero sense. We're heading into a rate cutting cycle right now. QT isn't getting ramped up, but likely ending in early 2026, and SLR policy for banks is loosening reserve requirements, not tightening, meaning more money is going to be made out of thin air from the banks. He says, I'm sure at some point we'll see a crazy sell-off driven by the people who believe it's a 4-year cycle. Don't let them psyop you. This will be the first 5-year cycle. We're just getting started. And these graphs that he's posted as well, once again, show you the money that is being printed by the US, the insane money supply, which has correlated 1-to-1 with risk assets like altcoins. And we have not seen anything like what we saw in 2021 or 2017 or even 2013 when the money supply was a lot smaller and the debt was a lot smaller. He believes that we are going to basically have one of these big areas of money supply and quantitative easing in the US, which will push up the price of risk assets. Jeff Park says, imagine being worried about the 4-year cycle before the unleashing of the greatest global liquidity campaign, the greatest demand shock since the launch of the ETFs, and the greatest moral bankruptcy of political accountability at every institutional level at every country. And for the non-believers of the 5-year cycle, the 4-year cycle theory is still not dead. He's CZ, saying he's not predicting the future, and don't get too excited, but a September in CZ's past, which was his first crypto cycle of 2017, was at this point right here, which is basically what Bitcoin and a lot of the altcoin, I guess a lot of the top altcoins like ETH and BNB are looking like, hitting all-time highs, but hasn't seen that parabolic growth yet. Alex Becker says alt season confirmed in response. Murad says the bull run hasn't even begun yet, but he still thinks the next 2 to 5 months is where we're going to see $200,000 plus Bitcoin in a straight line, that parabolic growth. I guess it's linear growth, but straight line going upwards. Top colts to 100x from here. The meme coins like the SPX 6900, he believes are going to 100x as all this liquidity flows into risk assets. Jesse says, even in response to the crazy China tariffs that crashed the markets, that this means the US already want to run the printing press hot, and they may have to run it into overdrive. The rates are dropping, as they're currently dropping right now. Stimulus checks, cheap credit, unlock the trillions locked in housing, deregulation across the board, basically a full-on wartime playbook for the economy in 2026. And he believes that massive liquidity dump was actually really helpful for his thesis. He says, we just cleared out every levered player overnight. Those who were going to sell as soon as they got the 2 to 3x and therefore keep the market restrained have sold or got liquidated. I'm telling you, we're nowhere near the top of the market. The biggest gains are still ahead.